And maybe now we will go into what is the time? Aha, we are actually very well in time. And what I was thinking, I would like to go into this is very intricate studies, but we should be studying that again. We have been studying that sometimes. Actually, I need to have this about sacred word. And now I wouldn't really need readers. And I'm sorry, this is I think the original PowerPoint years and years ago, certainly 15 years ago or so. And I had done that in better way. But because last year I lost some of my data and it was there and I couldn't find that better one. So I'm sorry, it might be somewhere that it is difficult to read, but I really would need now readers to help in this. And be brave. And I would like to go through this rather quickly because it's a lot to take. So that's why we are not trying to stop a lot and discuss a lot. You can put your comments into the chat. But then just to have the idea what it means when we talk about the word, the speech, the letter. What does it mean and how it is born, from where it is coming, and to have that kind of principle understanding, what it is, what does it, how it is divided, how it descends, and where we when we are then fitting into picture. Thank you. There was Marianne who was saying, could I have some few? Nisa could read. Winnie, great. Jessica, I think you could be reading too, because there are many slides, and we just go ahead because it is from Cosmic Fire, so you can already prepare yourself and knowing that it is something that we really have to think. And in the beginning, I think that is about how the solar logos is creating, manifesting, and there is a big hint to everybody of us to understand something about that process. I'm not going to say that yet. Then when we have gone through that, remind me if I don't remember to ask, because it is a real hint, absolutely a real hint for us. Okay, dear friends, let us start to move. We align with the soul logos, the highest Lord for us. And if you could be just in that order what you have been putting there, and Marco and Oria has been also volunteering. So we start with Santana. Oh, you are lovely, Stasia, Santana, Craig, Marianne, Nessa, Winnie, Oria, Jessica, Marco. We have many. Thank you so much. So Stacia will start. And let me know that is this to be seen. You know, there are little hints about these colorings. About those, because we are talking about the triple word. And this is, the colors are hinting for you. As you can see, the blue is not going to be easy to read. I tried to change the background, but when I was changing, then everything should have been going through again and put a different color. So try to stand with that. So we go into the idea and the message behind it. Is it possible to be read, Stacia? Can you
Yes.
see it? Okay,
Can you hear
great.
me?
Yes, I can.
Very
So
good. Thank
please.
you. Thank you, Tuija.
Thank you.
Creation beginning, the solar words. The basis of all manifested phenomena is the enunciated sound, or the word spoken with power. That is, with the full purpose of the will behind it. Herein, as known, lies the value of meditation. For meditation produces eventually that inner dynamic purpose and recollection, or that internal ideation, which must invariably precede the uttering of any creative sound. When it is said that the Logos produced the worlds through meditation and sound, it means that within his own center of consciousness, there was a period wherein he brooded over and meditated upon the purposes and plans he had in view, wherein he visualized to himself the entire world process as a perfected whole, seeing the end from the beginning and being aware of the detail of the consummated sphere. Is here anything for us to understand how to work magically with the sound?
That's the point. Thank you. And then next one.
The cosmic triple sound. Then when his meditation was concluded, and two, the whole completed as a picture before his inner vision, he brought into use a certain word of power which had been committed to him by the one about whom naught may be said. The logos of the cosmic scheme of which our system is but a part. With cosmic and logoic initiations, we are not concerned, except insofar as the human initiations reflect their stupendous prototypes. But it is of interest to the student to realize that, just as at each initiation, some word of power is committed to the initiate, so similarly to the Logos was committed the great word of power which produced our solar system. That word, which is called the sacred word, or Aum. It must be here remembered that this sound, Aum, is man's endeavor to reproduce on an infinitesimally small scale whereby creation was made possible. The words of power of all degrees have a triple sequence.
Very interesting. Who was the next?
Greg.
Okay, Greg. Are you there?
Or Marianne.
Can they open the mic?
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
First, they are sounded by some fully self-conscious entity, and the invariability takes place after a period of deliberation
Deliberation.
or meditation, yes, wherein the purpose in toto is visualized. Second, they affect the Deva kingdom and produce the creation of forms. This effect is dual in character. Third, they act as a stabilizing factor, and as long as the force of the sound persists, the forms cohere. When the logos, for instance, finishes the sounding of the sacred aum and the vibration ceases, then disintegration of the forms will ensue. So with the planetary logos, and thus on down the scale.
And now this on the right is about the second part. It is the.
Do you want me to?
Yes,
do you want
please.
me to read it too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
A. The divas on the evolutionary path, the great builders of the solar system and those under them who have passed the human stage, respond to the sound of the word and, with conscious realization, collaborate with the one who has breathed it forth, and thus the work is carried out. B. The divas on the involutionary arc, the lesser builders who have not passed through the human stage, also respond to the sound, but unconsciously or perforce, and through the power of the initiated vibrations, build the required forms out of their own substance.
Beautiful. So that is the same thing in bigger letters. I'm sorry, Craig. Okay. Was it Marianne now?
Yeah.
There might be very bad link. Is it?
Yeah, I can't hear.
Marianne, we cannot hear anything.
Nesa is next.
The words of power, or the permutations of the aum, exist in every possible tone, subtone, and quarter tone, and upon these shades of sound, the work of creation and its sustentation is built up. A multiplicity of sounds exists within each greater sound and affects different groups. It must be remembered also that generally and broadly speaking, the sounds within the solar system fall into two groups.
If you read those groups as well.
One, the initiatory sounds, or those which produce manifestation or phenomena of any kind on all planes. Two, the eventuating sounds, or one, those which are produced from within the forms themselves during the evolutionary process. And two, those which are the aggregate of the tones of every form in any particular kingdom of nature. Three, every form likewise has a tone which is produced by the minute sounds produced by the atoms composing that form. Four, these sounds grow out of the other group and affect inferior groups or kingdoms, if the word inferior may be used in connection with any department of divine manifestation.
And here we see about this intricate map and image of all the sounds which are involved in everything. So there is the impulse which is making something to happen. When it is happening, it starts to create also using the form where is the sound itself. Then when those forms are gathered, then within those forms in atomic level and in their relationships. So that's why when we think about the Devic impression or expression is that how difficult it is to try to make some kind of simplification of this, because it is impossibility. I have, during our studies in Moria Federation, there have been, so many students who have been trying to make this overall map, and every single work has failed because you just cannot do that. It is so complicated in the end when you start to study. Hopefully it gives you some idea. Okay, the next one.
For instance, the human kingdom, the fourth creative hierarchy, was produced by a triple ohm sounded in a particular key by the three persons of the Trinity in unison. God the Father, Shiva, God the Son, Vishnu, God the Holy Spirit, Brahma. This sound is still going forth. The interplay and interblending of the many tiny notes of each human being produces a great united sound which can be heard in the high places, and which in its turn is having a defined effect upon the animal kingdom. It is one of the factors which produce animal forms, both for human and animal occupation. For it must ever be remembered that man links the animal and the divine.
Okay, let us remember. And now we start the process, how it is descending.
It is neither possible nor desirable to enumerate the words of power, but certainly general indications may be given which will help the student to realize somewhat the magnitude of the subject and its intricacies. 1. The Great Word, as also by the logos of the solar system and communicate to him by his superior.
Okay, now we go also, I have been putting these for us into those maps, start to somehow understand about that. But first, before we go there, so how did you understand word of power? Just your own thoughts. What did you get it? Is there any thoughts? This is difficult. It is, this kind of studies is about that we should go very slowly and really think about through that it has some impact in our understanding, because this is very abstract in one sense. Okay, Santana, please.
I also can say something too in
Okay,
a minute.
Greg. Okay, yes, Santana first, right.
All right.
Oh, no, I was just going to say something seemed to come that the words of power were given from within, and rather than us just sounding them, that there was a higher energy flowing to us, and it was sort of important to understand this. And really, they are sacred words and not to be used lightly, because they do have an effect. The sounds that we make affects the high places and creates on the lower levels. So
Exactly. Thank you, Santana. And then Greg?
In terms of the words of power, I think I related back to the keyword focus that often we use, and we always have to be very careful how we use these words of power, but there are keywords focused for every one of the rays.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it becomes a living expression of the combined words, and then it works differently for each individual, because every person, every individual, every personality ray is going to start from that level of uh, speaking the words of power, which then is then carried into the soul level and the monadic level. But those words of power always have to be done in great honor and great awakening, because they can be so very powerful, as you and I would have discussed in terms of the Agni Chaitans, especially here in this dense physical world that we live in. When we start to work with the Agni Chaitans, and how we do not work with them directly, we work directly instead with the solar angels, which carry our words of power and know how to best use our words of power as
Yes.
needed.
Absolutely. Thank you, Greg. The thing, it was very good that you were bringing this whole idea, the power of those words of power, as they say, words of power. And this, when we think about it, it's like the idea, it's the word of creation. So it sends forth a whole group of phenomena, what is going to happen. And that is immediately related to karma. If we are not able to follow through, or we don't have our equipment enough strong, enough pure, and we are just loosely trying to work, use this kind of magical work, it creates chaos, and that happened in Moon Chain. So this word of power, the real word of power, is behind every single creation, every single human. And I have been thinking, I have not yet studied actually, is he saying that, but I think that is the name, our real name within how we were called forth into existence. As we know that as we know that our logos has been calling us forward. And yes, is that solar logos, because monad has its home in the sun. That is again a big question to think about. But anyway, the greater one who has been sounding forth. No, it's the Sanat Kumara, because it is said that he was creating every single human as his image. So he has been the one who has been calling, or is he intermediary for that, the like top highest word. A at least has been sent forth from the sun. But it is when we think about the idea of those words of power, they may sound just some sentence. But as Blavatsky said, for instance, about the Om Mani Padme Hum, should be never pronounced without a thought, without real intention, because it is one of the most sacred mantras. And the whole enunciation of mantra and mantrams belongs to that idea of the sacred word. We are ought to learn how to use the sound, meaning how to use then the tones and the notes. They are also related to this whole process. Nesa, did you want to say something? Anastasia, want to say something?
Yeah, I just it came to me that we are creators, and it's the thought behind the vocalization, and that as we grow in awareness, that we become more and more responsible.
Mm.
When we are I'm going to say probably when we're involutional, we're still creating, and that's probably why we get all this karma, but it's like we're not very potent at that point because we're not aware. But as we become aware, and then it is more and more important to be very cautious with our very thoughts and the words that we send forth, and that our responsibility grows. The more you learn, the more responsible you are. Like you were talking about giving thought to the Om Mane Padme Hum. That takes a lot of focus to just, have that in your intent at each moment. And
Exactly.
yeah, and so we become more and more powerful, as we move along. And it's just the thought that we should be more aware of what we think, and what is behind the words and the energy that we send out into the world. That's it. Okay.
Exactly. Very good points. And isn't it, when we think about this, is very intricate studies, but even this little, to have some kind of background to our everyday brain consciousness, to really recognize it, that I am creating something. And because when we are the creators, then we have to take care of that what we have been creating. The sounds which have been sent forth, they have their own arc in the time and space. And that's why we talk in astrology about the moon nodes. Like the south node is the past, and the tail, the karmic tail, what is hanging there. And as Tibetan said, in all, and Blavatsky, in all of the places, how we are still animals. And that, I think, is one part of that idea, that because we have that tail there, our karmic tail. Okay, thank you, Nisa. And then Stacia.
Yes, thank you, Tuija. I have a few things to share, so I'll try and limit it. A long story short, I got some feedback. Alice Bailey, The Science of the Word. In the writings of Alice Bailey, the sacred word is explored with scientific precision as a tool for invocation and evocation. Its primary identified is the sacred word Om, used to align the personality with the soul. But there's three things that are pointed out in this. That the breath, the breath, the dual aspect of the sound, and the seven rays in the sound. So with the breath of the word, Bailey teaches that the great world is the breath of the Logos, God, vibrating through space. In human practice, sounding the Om is a rhythmic act that drives out lower vibrations from the emotional and mental bodies, attracts higher spiritual substance into the aura, builds the Antakarana, the rainbow bridge between the lower mind and the higher spiritual triad. We know these things, but there's some tidbits here. The second, the dual aspect of the sound. Now, Bailey distinguishes between the way the word is sounded by different groups. So the in-breathing aspiration, the student sounds the word to reach upward and purify the self in the in-breathing. The out-breathing is creation. The master or the Hierophant sounds the word to manifest divine will on the physical plane. This is the third, the seven rays and sound. Each of the seven rays, the primary energies of the universe in the Bailey system, has its own specific note or tone. The sacred word acts as the key note that harmonizes these seven distinct energies into a single unified expression of divine purpose.
How beautiful. Are you reading from AUOM?
Well, it's a little tricky. We have a repository of our own AI that seeks
Oh,
only certain.
you are lucky. But you could
Yeah.
send that for us because it was essentializing this and let us because I have not been putting here the difference of AUM and OM.
Mhm.
So did you want to continue, Stacia?
Well, they have. I'm sorry. There is a bit on in the sacred word in Buddhism, Om or Aum.
Mm-hmm.
In Buddhism, particularly the Tibetan and esoteric Vajrayana traditions, the sacred word is often synthesized into the syllable Om. It's considered the primordial sound from which all other mantras and forms
Mm-hmm.
emerge. When
Mm-hmm.
they talk about the Aum, the
Mm-hmm.
threefold nature, the components of the sound A, U, and M are frequently associated with the three Vajras, the enlightened body,
Mm-hmm.
speech, and the mind of Buddha.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as we see again that we we have to study the sound. We have to study this. In principle, what is in our teaching, well, one cannot say our teaching. It is everyone's teaching, but via that what Tibetan has been saying. And once we were studying this in one class, that OM is related to Jupiter. It is second ray sound, and it is the sound what should be used nowadays via the disciples. That it is that which is taking us from the matter to the aspiring path and to the evolution out of incarnations. And AUM is manifestational. If we study now, it's a manifestational direction. So it is the coming like from spirit to the matter, and OM is from matter to spirit. That is one. I remember that distinction we made, and by Michael. So there might be some different things as well. I try to think, but anyway, when we study that, this is all what is looked when the primordial, how do you say that sound A is sounded by the logos, and how it then travels via these different stages. And every single one here, what you see, the Maharajas are Deva lords, who are the transmitters, who are standing like in their highest position. They are like A's in all of those planes. The primordial. Do I pronounce that correctly? Primordial?
Primordial.
Primordial, yes. So they are like the primordial sounds over that particular plane. The highest one, of course, is when we go to that, to that chart. So all of these, what you see, the 7 here, are solar logos, all of them. And I think we were once discussing about that does it mean that our logo, our solar logos, is here? That his highest, the word of power would be upon the fourth ray. And I think that was then left in the question that we didn't know. I think it was so that we didn't know that that is that like a general description, or is it telling about our solar logos' evolution? But anyway, that all is like under a big A. All of that what we see. Who was the one who was saying, Nisa, maybe you were saying about the seven rays, or was it Craig saying about the seven rays? Yes, they come out from that primordial sound A. But let us study. Oh, I have been making here.
We have many comments if you
Oh,
want.
okay. So please read.
Okay. Antoinette says, God manifesting. You first asked about the word. Rose said, word of power, the keys to crystallize the creation into form. Diana says, all the words of power are rooted in the great word committed to the solar logos at the dawn of manifestation. We can access to just a hidden note of this realm.
Beautiful.
Aurea says, I think the power of the word lies in moving the primordial atom like sound and activating the vibration within the vacuum and changing the frequencies of everything around and inside the cell. Ben says, we are the echo of the word of creation tasked with completing the great work. So is my word that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it. Isaiah chapter 55, verse 11. I think that's how you say it. Santana O Mane Pamihum means salutations to the jewel in the lotus.
Lotus, right. The living life.
And Stacia, I think this is a... Did you already say this, Stacia?
Yeah. I'm just copying some stuff
Oh,
to
thank you.
pass. Yes, thank you.
Beautiful.
And then Santana says, it is also important to learn how to sound the sacred word Om correctly and to truly purify the vehicles and align with the soul.
Right. This is the basic thought behind everything. But we have to also forgive us, because when we think about the history and the human evolution and this time, the Kali Yuga, that the teaching has been withdrawn so long time, and there is a lot of distortion. So that is also our sad story. But anyway, thank you for your comments. They are fantastic. We have to collect
Oh, we're
them.
not... do you want to
Oh,
keep
okay,
going,
sorry.
or...
Oh, yes, sorry.
Greg says, whenever the subject of the invoking of the words being made manifest, I am reminded repeatedly of the focus on the vocalizing that can occur in the meditation regarding the Rule 7 for disciples initiates, when we focus on our unique dual chords with the inner ashrams of our personal identification as being a living embodiment exemplified by our dual chords, three tones that form our dual chords, like the A with the U and carried forth through the M.
Beautiful.
And then Stacia kindly posted another quote. Alice Bailey, The Science of the Word.
Right?
Okay. That's it.
Okay, that's it. Beautiful, dear friends. Wonderful.
And we have 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
For the break.
Ouch. Is that the official break or unofficial
That's the
break?
official break.
Official. Okay. I will say this and then I go back, because I think that we are in good moment for that, what I was thinking to ask in the end, but I will say it now because we have 10 minutes. So now when we are having this one great word, so that is the word of A. And in A there is already this triple sound, A-U-M. And look at that, these Deva lords, the highest, Shiva, Vishnu and Brahma, because they have already they have a secret within them. Shiva ends with A. Vishnu ends with U. So what about Brahma? We say Brahm and A. So that consists already, the mother aspect consists already, or have within, how do you say, has within father. So it is like the matter cannot be existing without the will, without the first intention. It's really interesting to think about these words, Shiva, Vishnu and Brahma. So first, the one great word, A, which consists then the triple sound, AUM. Is that clear for us? So that this AUM is not the second step. It is the one step. It's the how do we say the one in three, three in one. That is the idea here, and it is happening in every single subplane. The highest plane of the subplanes is always the logoic plane or the atomic plane, the first atomic plane, and there stands the Deva Lords, which are all of this Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma, Indra, Agni, Varuna, Kshiti. They are all A's in one ways of looking. But then they are Shiva is like A, Vishnu is like a U, Brahma is AM, Indra is M. All of these are under Brahma. All of them belongs to the Mahat, the matter side of the aspect of God. So when we are thinking about how the sound is evolving, we cannot take anything out of the Deva kingdom. So because the Deva kingdom is the carrier of the sound, which has been gone from the mind of God or the mind of Logos. So then the Deva kingdom, the mother, the Brahma, where I was writing the here, as we see, the A pushes it forward, and then mother comes into action. The Deva kingdom comes into action. So we have sometimes, so let us read that what is created. Sorry, no, now it comes to the, it goes to these divisions. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, this one. Who was the next? Could you read that?
Margot.
Okay, Marco.
Two, three words, excuse me, committed by the solar logos to each of the three logoi as follows. A, the sacred sound A to Shiva, he who embodies the spirit or will aspect. It is the word through which God the Father works. B, the sound U to Vishnu, God the Son. He is the form builder and provides the body which the spirit must occupy, thereby making divine incarnation possible. A is the life sound. U is the form sound. C, the sound M to Brahma, who in his work of energy provider links in active intelligence, spirit and form, or the self and not self. It might here be pointed out that much information in that the three departments of the hierarchy of our planet will come to the student who wisely ponders these functions.
Very interesting. We could be studying the hierarchy via the sound. Before we go into our break, I want to point out what I was pointing in the beginning. the magical method of success, how it has to be done. So first, that is the how the logoic process is dealt here. So the logos is now centering his consciousness into a period where he broods over. So it means that whatever we need to create, we have to brood over. And then we meditate upon the purpose and the plan. And then when that is done, so first brooding, meditating upon the purpose and the plan. They have to be in place. Then he visualizes himself to entire world process as a perfected whole. Then you visualize the whole process through into that perfected form. Think about, he says that how it is done. Brooding, meditating upon the purpose and plan, then visualizing the whole thing to the perfected whole, and then seeing the end from the beginning and being aware of the detail of the consummated sphere. Okay, that was so the same process. And then his meditation was concluded, the whole completed as a picture before his inner vision. He brought into use a certain word of power. Then comes the word of power. And of course, when we think about creative processes, there are real words of power. But for us, when we are imitating the higher processes and we try to really make differences on this plane, we try to be co-workers, there comes your word of power in that sense, that how we have been learning to understand the race, and that word of power can be used. So Solar Logos got that word of power from about one about whom naught may be said. And of course, then we have been talking all the time now about the science of contact. That now when we try to merge in that place that we can communicate with our solar angel, then when this process and this contact, a telepathic contact, is very strong, maybe we can gain that type of word of power into action. I think that to think about what Tibetan has been giving us, all of his books are full of this kind of hints how to do it. He's not saying, okay, dear student, here comes the hint. It's here and there, hidden in the text, that could be just read. But there are many places where it is very good to just stay for a while and listen what he says about how the process is done. Jessica, what is the time now? Do we have then comments or?
There are no comments, but more people volunteering to read, which they'll get a chance to after the break, right?
Very beautiful. So let us have a break now. And the break is 15 minutes?
Yes.
Or what? 15 minutes. And so
we come back at the top of the hour.
Yeah, at the top of the hour. Exactly. So dear friends, we meet very soon, and have a good break.
Some mornings The soul needs direction before it needs motivation. Psalm 92 gives you that direction. It teaches you that gratitude is not a bonus for good days. It is a way to begin any day. Before the pressure comes, before the news reaches you, before the mind starts racing, you can choose thanksgiving. This song is for the person who wants to build the morning on something solid, not on feelings, on truth. It is good to give thanks to the Lord, and it is good to start here.
It is good to give thanks to the Lord and sing to your name. It is good to bless the Most High before the day takes shape, to declare your loving kindness in the morning and your faithfulness at night, to let thanksgiving lead my soul and set my heart right. You have made me glad through your word, and I rejoice in your hands. Lord, how great are all your works, how deep your plans. When my thoughts are scattered, your wisdom stays. When I cannot see the whole road, your goodness remains. It is good to give thanks to the Lord. It is good to bless your name. Loving kindness in the morning, faithfulness through the dark. You make my heart glad again. You steady what I feel. It is good to give thanks to the Lord and let your goodness heal. Child, Psalm 92 is training for the soul. It teaches you to begin with thanksgiving before your emotions decide the atmosphere that matters. Because if you wait to feel grateful, you will praise only sometimes. But if you choose gratitude as a discipline, your heart becomes steadier. Morning loving kindness, night faithfulness. That rhythm heals more than you think. So don't call gratitude shallow. It is one of the strongest ways to keep your soul awake. The righteous shall flourish like the palm tree and grow like cedar strong. Those planted in the house of the Lord will stand and belong. They still bear fruit in older years. They stay alive with praise. They show the Lord is upright, my rock through presence I will stand and sing.
It is good to give thanks to the Lord,
For you are everything. The Lord says, stop beginning your day with complaint. Do this today. Before you touch your worries, give thanks. Before you rehearse your pressure, bless my name. Declare my loving kindness in the morning. Remember my faithfulness at night. I am planting you deeper than your feelings. I am making you fruitful where you thought you were fading. So thank me before the evidence grows, and let gratitude become the ground you stand on. To show that the Lord is upright, He is my rock always. There is no unrighteousness in Him, no shadow in His ways. So I will bless you in the morning and trust you through the night. It is good to give thanks to the Lord.
Oh, I'm sorry. I tried to fade this nicely, but it was coming immediately to the bottom. I'm so sorry to stop like this. Okay, dear friends, welcome back to our studies. This is really beautiful. Gayatri Mantra by Deva Premal and Miten. It's very powerful, this oming like that. Do you think that we could have a band from our group and do something like that? It would be very powerful. You can hear, or you can sense this vibration. And there are many secrets about this, where the A is situated in your body, where the U is situated in your body, and where the M is situated when you sing. And I was in one of the, I'm sorry, I'm now closing this by accident, stupidly, and it is thinking now. So I was in one class, it was called Living Voice, and that was led by a singer from France, Greg, what is his name? He has done many of this kind of Middle Ages music and songs, and these Gregorian songs and spiritual songs, Resnikov. And he was actually talking about these secrets of the AUM, how it is actually A he was putting in the heart, U in the throat, and M in the head. And actually Michael was able to bring out of the secret of from the teaching, and I don't remember. I have to try to find that, where Tibetan is telling how the mother and the father, it's better that I'm not saying now anything because I cannot remember it. So head is normally the first, the father, the first ray. And M, if you sound it should be sounding in the center of your head. And then how it was with the son and the father. So A is sounding in the chest area, and then throat, which is like, this is the son area, this is the mother area. And when you are sounding U, it is sounding here. It is something big. I'm so bad because I'm not technically any advanced person in music, but those who know music could be explaining that. Anyway, it was interesting, and I tried to find the quote what Michael was giving then. Okay, dear friends, let us move forward. And Jessica, if you are so kind again to be the Saturn, that
Yes.
way.
Yes.
Good, beautiful. So now the next reader.
Walter.
Lovely, Walter. Now we go further in the process.
The Cosmic Triple Sound. 3. 7 great words. Again based on the sacred 3 sounds A-U-M. These produced creation, or the manifestation of the 7 planes of our solar system. They are committed not to human entities, but to the 7 great devas or Raja lords, who are the ensouling lives of a plane. Hence, in the various initiations, their collaboration is necessary, before these key words can be committed to the initiate.
And here we are, have the whole process. Now the A has been sounded, which has this AUM within it. And then it goes further, descends further, and 7 great words appears. And that 7 great words create these 7 planes, and 7 planes, and 7 planes, going further and further and further. Here we can see. So these Rajadeva lords are the who are the transmitters of that great A. They are the ones who are giving the life over these particular planes. And then because the 7 words are created, so when we have here the first A and then the 7 planes are created, or 7 different worlds are created, as well when we have one plane, like here we have the cosmic physical plane. So the highest transmitter is Shiva of that cosmic physical plane, but then all of the other 7s are created. And do I have then all, as we see on this lowest level, we have again 7. So via Kshiti comes the other 7. And on those sub lanes we have then again the 7s. So do you see how the sound travels and all the time appears a new sphere of that thought, what was sent forth via the sound. Okay, then I have, yes, the 7 great words. And these are the directors, they are called the transmitters of the sound. Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma, Indra, Agni, Varuna, and Kshiti. It is said that Kshiti is one of the most, most visited Deva Lord at the moment, because humanity is going through the first initiation, and the etheric body becomes so important. And Kshiti and his 3 initiates are the ones who are giving instructions at the moment to hierarchy, who is directing this great advancement in humanity, the first initiation. Do we have any comments, Jessica? Do we need to take them now, or shall we just continue?
We do not have, we have one comment.
Okay.
Diana says, U, Vishnu, Mother, Throat, Creative Center.
What about Mother? Vishnu?
Throat, U, Vishnu, Mother, Throat. Creative
No.
Center. I think
No,
that's
Brahma.
all.
Brahma, mother. Brahma is the mother and the throat. Vishnu is the sun and the heart. And Shiva is the head, the father.
So Diana says, okay.
Okay. And Santana.
Yes, a couple of things. I had a question about what you were saying before about the magical method to brood over the creation, meditate the purpose and plan, and visualize the perfected form and see the end from the beginning. But in that slide, there was the will, and you didn't mention the will, although will and purpose are often the same. But I just was going to ask you,
Yeah,
You have to sustain the vision maybe with the will. Maybe that's the answer for that.
right. It was the how solar logos is creating, how the
Yeah,
creation actually happens. And
right.
in that sense, I think that when we are having the word of power is about that what is the purpose, because you can have the purpose also under something else than the will, but
Yeah.
of course the will is the beginning of everything.
Mhm.
When we go beyond, there is the
Right,
will to manifest something.
right. Well, thank you for that. And then the only other comment was all the planes with all the great diva lords, all seven of the planes, I was thinking was they are probably also due to the colors and everything else connected with the seven rays.
As you see
Yeah,
here.
that's all. Thank you.
That's right. Yeah. All of these are according to the race, except the astral plane has these two colors, the blue and the rose color. But the rose color is very often used when it is this transformational process going on, and as the rose is cooling color, it cools for instance, the nervous system. That's why what we have been essentializing, I don't know, I don't think it is related to our group, but I have been seeing also that the astral plane has been many times illustrated as blue, light blue color. So we should be thinking about, oh, it is so, when you think about, just a little hint again about that intricacy. When you think about our cosmic physical plane, what is the color of that cosmic physical plane? Who dares to say?
Blue.
Physique.
Blue.
If we say physical,
Violet?
yes, this whole plane is violet plane. So that's why when you think about the subplanes or the how we call the oh gosh, my mind, how we call these planes here, they are systemic planes. So the systemic planes have like violet, red, violet, indigo, violet, green, violet, yellow, violet, orange, violet, rose, violet, violet. But then when we think about how this whole plane is influenced by that, what is behind all of us is according to, where do I find that? According to here is Mahat, the intelligence line. So all of this, what we have here, so this is actually not illustrated sequentially. It does not sound correct. Tell me, what is that word? How do you say that? Sequentially. Yes, this is not done. When you start to study this Michael was saying many times, and when you start to study, there is a jump from this cosmic physical plane is a jump, very huge jump. Anyway, we know that everything what is down here is under the cosmic, super cosmic Brahma. So that's why this, where are we here? That's why this, oh, sorry, is that the correct one? So that's why we have here the cosmic, super cosmic coloring, the the green. Then we have this particular cosmic physical plane is under violet. So that's why when we are talking about colors, we have to always understand what we are actually talking about. And then also we should be thinking, we have heard that our solar system is secondary solar system. That's why when we have the supercosmic green, we would have solar logoic blue, and then we would have this from the perspective of the solar logos, solar logoic systemic plane, the cosmic physical plane is violet. So we would have green, blue, violet. And then there are other things to be considered, how the rays are descending, is that every single plane has, I have been skipping. Every single plane has their sign, astrological sign. Here is Leo, here is Virgo, here is Libra, here is Scorpio, but here is Capricorn. It's not a Sagittarius. Here is Sagittarius. So there is this mystery of the soul, why Capricorn is out of order. Because the Capricorn, avatar of Capricorn, is ruling over this period of time, uplifting humanity. And the lowest is Aquarius. So, via Aquarius, what rays are coming and their colorings? Aquarius is turquoise. So, going back, green, blue, violet, turquoise. Then green, the astral plane, green, blue, violet, rose. Then mental plane, green, blue, violet, orange. So you get the idea, right? And then if we divide then again into these sub-planes, let us take the lowest plane. Green, blue, violet, violet, and then the subplane of there is violet. So this is very violet thing what is happening here. And so with all of those. And of course it would be better that you would be seeing that visually, because it needs a lot of thinking. And then there is the ruling planet via which again the rays are coming, and that's why the colors. Yes, Nesa.
I was curious. All this violet, my suspicion is that that's because the violet divas are involved in creating the forms. Okay.
Yes,
thanks.
absolutely. We are in that process that also the solar logos, but how it is going to be in next solar system, because during this solar system the order is that, and then it's going to be the first ray system. So anyway, that was not the point, so I'm not going to deviate, but we can think about that. So let us move forward. So who is the next one who would read?
That one is Joe. I mean, Maria. Maria, then Joe.
For the 49 words related to the 49 subplanes or fires. These again are committed to the 49 builders of the sacred fires. The above two groups of words are in the jurisdiction of the third aspect and are given out by Brahma. The big Brahma solar logos.
Yeah, that is my question. Is that because if we look at image, that no, that was not in here. It is in other places where we were thinking about how our solar logos is related to that great third aspect. But let us not go there, because I don't have any images and I should be rethinking again what was the thought. But let us go again backwards, that it becomes clear for us. So first we have this one great word. Within it is the AUM. This whole thing is like big A. And then comes the 7 great words via, or actually I said wrongly, so great A and then great U and then great M. So great U has within it this AUM, and then the M, great M, has this is creating the 7 great words, and that goes then under Brahma still to the 49 words and fires, and which are all of those, how they come out are this all sub planes of the systemic planes. That makes 49 fires. And there is something about that when we think about how many times we have to forgive. So there is one hint behind it. Okay, and we move forward. Now comes a little bit difficult thing to understand. Who is the next reader?
Joe?
I am here. The triple sound. 5. There are again 5 great words with signs which come under the department of Vishnu, or God the Son, and are breathed out by him. By their means, the 5 kingdoms of nature on the evolutionary arc came into being. A, the mineral kingdom. B, the vegetable kingdom. C, the animal kingdom. D, the human kingdom. E, the spiritual kingdom.
Right. So now you remember that when Vishnu sounds his own you, becomes these 5 different spheres and different lives, the kingdoms. And this is, I can say that I don't understand. I have to just think about that, what he said, but really how they come, because mind very often would like to have order into things. So we talk some kind of consciousness aspect here, which are creating those different live expressions. But at the same time, the mother is also functioning, and that has to be something which is related to Fohat, how we understand Fohat. That Fohat is somehow, even though it is related to mother, but it has this electric aspect in it, and then comes Vishnu into action, so son and the mother. Has anybody better idea of that?
I have a very dim understanding. That is that the first 3 levels come into a single unity.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point, somehow there's a revision, and we go through the base and we begin to work up.
Exactly. That's the key. Yeah. So this is the evolutionary aspect. So when we think about this 49 worlds, we could say, or fires, it's still about this manifesting, which is coming down. But when we have turned, then comes this Vishnu, the consciousness aspect, and that could be said that we are somehow, this is expression of Om, when we start to circle down, circle up towards the Father. Good point.
I have
Yeah.
another comment then that helped me help others. When I first began on the Eastern path, if you will, at a Paramahansa Yogananda ashram, I was taught that AUM was the highest mantra. And I immediately said to myself, well, why would one want any other? So I adopted Om as my word. And years later, I mean, really, 25 years later, I end up with Moria, and I am warned, don't use that word. And I'm really confused about it.
Yes, Tibetan talks about that AUM belongs to past, and because it is the manifesting sound, so the Amen is also said that we should not use that anymore. We should be using Om. And I think for us it is very implemented already, Om, and that we don't have problem in that. But it's good to understand this Devic process behind these sounds and the wordings in order to gain some kind of understanding what helps us. But I think that there is no worth to start to battle with anybody. Those who have been using AUM, so then it's should be to study. That is what I am wanting to say, because it's one has to study Tibetan in order to gain any little bit about the understanding what he is teaching for us. Okay, so let us read forward. Or are there some comments?
There are.
Okay.
Greg says, also, it is important that all colors fuse to become clear white light of visible light, and that all matter essentially exists in the cosmos. And also the same light, we only see just barely 10% of all light.
That's true. Yeah. What was in the beginning about the light, white light?
Also, it is important that all colors fuse to become the clear white light of visible light. And that all matter essentially exists in the cosmos.
Yeah. We should study that. I am not very good in this, but what I am just understanding that when we think about that blackness of Shambhala, that maybe I didn't understand completely correct that, but when we think about that, the all is absorbed to the monadic point, which is from our perspective black. So is it true that when we think about prism, that through prism the white light is divided into 7?
Yeah, that's what I was suggesting, is that the white light is broken into the 7 variations on light, and they're all aspects of visible light, of which we only see just barely 10% in the entire cosmos. So there's so much more. The other 90% is only perceived through intuition and on those inner planes, because but out of the clear visible, the clear white light, when we can begin to envision and begin to see on the inner planes, then we begin to see the whole expression of the manifested light as it is perforce come into being. Yet in this very dense physical cosmos that we live in, we can only see 10% of the great potential that exists
That's so
beyond.
interesting. Yes.
Yeah.
And Tibetan talks about these, the astral light colors and then the mental colors, that they go beyond our understanding and even ability to receive them as they are. So we still have so much to discover in the colors. And in our art expressions, there are our artists are becoming, when you think about, for instance, what is created via then AI and using that kind of technology, and then these light colors that is created in the skies, for instance, via drones and all kinds of things, light all around the world, the great manifestos what the artists are, those are who are on that line manifesting. So we are just moving towards that. But this is really, when we think that how little our eye can catch now, it is, and our consciousness, the brain consciousness, which what it can catch at the moment, it's so small thing. Okay, there was Santana and then Lisa.
No, I was just going to say that because we're all different, we might be all one in the one light on a certain plane. Surely our perception of color is different. Some people are even colorblind. But also, I think how you see color is the level that you can attain. Like the eye of the soul is the eye of vision. So if you can attain that level, you would see certain things. But if you can attain the spiritual triad, colors would be different. I must say, I see a lot of blue, and I see it emanating with my eyes open. But I also notice sometimes a lot of green, translucent colors in nature. So yeah, so I think everybody has different mixture of the rays and the stars, and perhaps see colors differently. Although perhaps there are the original sounds and the original colors, or the really energies.
They are.
The control of the lowest, it takes place by, you could say, the highest. Yes.
Oh, what's the Francis?
I think it was his class. She accidentally unmuted.
Oh, class.
It was an accidental unmuting.
Okay. Oh, is his class going on now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay, Nisa.
Two things. One was I see two different colors. Like with one eye, I see kind of grays, and with my other eye, I see kind of browns. So, that's like, because my eyes wander, I can look through one eye or the other. And I've often wondered if my eyes in my head perceive two different color backgrounds, like what are other people actually seeing? And
this is interesting.
I've wondered this many, many times. And
that the left eye is said to be the eye of the personality and the soul. It depends on how it is looked. But anyway, like the lower eye and the higher eye. So the eye of Shiva, or the soul eye, and then the personality eye or the soul eye. It depends on what level. And but this is really interesting, and it should be notified. Everyone's should think about of your vision, how you actually see. I just wondering, is everybody seeing the prana bubbles? Oh, by the way, Nesa, did you want to continue?
Oh, yeah. Secondly, and it's just, it's a kind of an ongoing joke between men and women. And women will go on about mauve and, all these subtle perceptions of different colors. And men will go, mauve? Like, but that also speaks to, that we already are seeing a lot of different colors. We don't just see actually 7 colors. Some of us do see like a wider spectrum of colors. And of course, some of us, who are colorblind, somebody mentioned colorblind, are more limited. But anyway, that's what I have to say.
Very interesting when we start to elaborate this, our eye, and also about the vision. What is said that it is limited at this time in order to enhance our evolution, and also about that we need to learn to think. That's why our eye is limited in its vision, so that we don't have these etheric vision at this time of space and time, so that it is going to be developed now again, how it was in Atlantean times. Do we have other questions?
Oh, yes. So back when you were talking about the color being what is the word, violet, Maria said that is why there are the violet devas here. And Diana says devas hear colors, humans see colors, and both feel and understand symbols.
Yeah,
And
it is said. Sorry,
Santana adds to that, devas hear color and see sound and do not suffer as human beings. She said that first. Okay.
Right, that is said so. Okay, good. So
And
let us
then
move.
Rose says something here. I once read in a brief excerpt by Rudolf Steiner that the devas have an intelligence, but not free will. Humans have free will, but not intelligence. Therefore, the two have to work together constructively, and the Devic kingdom is at our mercy in terms of what they build, for they have no choice but to build what we create, for better or for worse, and hence the absolute necessity for us to work consciously together with these forces of creation, as we're discussing today. I'm wondering if having to create negative or chaotic manifestations would affect the Devic kingdom, if at all? Question mark.
Absolutely. Everything what is out of tune and out of the law is creating for devas a lot of problems. It's a big issue about that, how we are the kings of the lower kingdoms, and under us there are many kingdoms of nature, or not many kingdoms, but many layers and hierarchies of living beings. So in that sense, the how we are sounding, as we were talking in the beginning, that we should be thinking really first before we let this send forth via us, because there are always, whatever we say and sound forth, there are immediately those who are building that send forth the from involutionary arc, and we can, what I am thinking and understanding, that we can actually hinder their evolution if we speak beautifully, if we speak via blessing, and really thinking and really being responsible then we create forms which have their own arc of life. And he says, for instance, in the meditation work, he says about that, how successful is that work? Is that what is the intention? How strong is the intention? And when we come together as a group, for instance, this, I again take that as an example in 12 Heartbeats of Peace Meditations, the group comes together, and many of you have been describing already about that, how there is a certain field. You step into the field. And it is because these Devic lives are there in their places already. And our home should be the same way, that there is a, we say, good vibes. So it's about that how the like the inner silence is kept. Also, Tibetan talks about that in the future the cities will be completely silent. That there is so much to be thinking about that when
We
we
have
start to
4
think. Yeah.
minutes. 4 minutes until.
Really? Until
Yeah,
what?
I've been meaning
The
to say
break?
that.
Yes, there
No,
is.
until our speaker, Diana Warren, starts in 4
Oh,
minutes.
do you know, dear friends? I have to introduce Diana, and yes, we cannot. Oh, there you are, dear friend. We are now stuck into the words. So anyway, good. Thank you, dear group. And Craig, if you can write your comment there, because we have to be in time and have our schedule. But anyway, we were talking about the words. We were talking about the sound, how it is manifested, and actually we were able to go through the whole process. So I just okay, that is actually repetition, so I will not go any more there. But thank you, dear friends. Hopefully you got something, and something stays in your mind.